Goedemorgen allemaal. Welkom bij het webinar Succesvol Verkopen in India vandaag. Het is de eerste keer dat wij dit op deze manier doen. We hebben er uiteraard zin in en het is ook leuk om te zien dat een hoop bedrijven zich aan hebben gemeld, meer dan we verwacht hadden. Ik zal even kort het programma toelichten, maar voordat ik dat doe wil ik jullie even uitleggen hoe het programma werkt. Het wijst zichzelf eigenlijk. Je ziet ergens de chatfunctie staan. Daar kan je vragen stellen. Die vragen die houden we bij tijdens het webinar. En aan het einde van het webinar stellen wij de meest belangrijke vragen aan de spreker Klaus Maier van Maier+Vidorno. Jullie staan allemaal op mute, dus je kunt niks zeggen om het overzichtelijk te houden. Ik zal me zo meteen even voorstellen. Daarna hebben we 4 poll questions, pollvragen voorbereid om even een idee te krijgen wat het level en het niveau van kennis onder de deelnemers is. Dan beginnen we met de presentatie. Ik zal Klaus Maier, die jullie links of rechts van mij zien, zou ik even voorstellen. Aan het einde dus een Q&A. En aan het einde van de presentatie of na afloop, dan zullen wij nog een video-opname van dit webinar naar jullie toesturen. Dus dan kan je nog even terug luisteren of kijken als er iets te snel gegaan is. Dus stel vooral je vragen in de chat en dan kunnen we er op die manier voor zorgen dat iedereen er ook uithaalt wat hij eruit wil halen. Mijn naam is Ward Massa, ik ben een van de oprichters van IndiaConnected. Ik hoop dat een heel aantal van jullie al onze nieuwsbrieven al een aantal jaren voorbij zien komen. Wij zijn een adviesbureau voor Nederlandstalige bedrijven die naar India gaan. Daarnaast zijn wij de exclusieve partner voor Maier+Vidorno in Nederland. Dat doen wij met goede reden. Maier+Vidorno is het grootste adviesbureau voor Europese bedrijven in India met meer dan 150 werknemers en 4 kantoren door heel India. We werken al enige tijd samen om zo ook diensten aan te bieden die verder gaan dan market entry. Daar komen we zo meteen nog even op. De spreker van vandaag, I will switch to English now, so Klaus can also hear what I'm saying. The speaker today is Klaus Maier. He's the founder of Maier+Vidorno. I have been living in India, or I used to live in India for 2 years. I studied political science, and after that I worked at the Netherlands-India Chamber of Commerce and Trade. Before we started IndiaConnected together with my partner Maarten van der Schaaf. But Klaus has been living in India a lot longer. I think he has been in India for 20 or 30 years at the moment. He is in Delhi also at this moment. And Maier+Vidorno is already for 2 decades the most important advisory firm for mostly European companies entering the Indian market, but also companies from the US or Japan. Before I hand over the mic to Klaus, we prepared a few poll questions. So if you read it on your screen, you can click the answer. I'm going to start with the first question. When was the last time you've been in India for business purposes? Waiting for the last people to vote. You can click on your screen if you want to vote. So most of you, or at least, most of you have been in India this year. So prior to the start of the Corona crisis, that's good to hear that there is a lot of experience in the audience. Next question: what's your experience with selling in India? This is also important input for Klaus to kind of feel what the experience is. Okay. So most of you sell occasionally to India. I can imagine that means that you are being contacted by potential Indian clients who want to buy your machinery or your services. Some of you have not sold anything yet. The interesting thing for us is that nobody has their own sales team yet in India, and I'm sure Klaus will talk a lot about this, how to expand sales in India and how to make the next step. Third question. I see that the answers of the questions have been not answered properly, because I mean it's quite common that everybody experiences some kind of challenges when selling in India. And the last question, this is an interesting one. In 2025, India should be responsible for which percentage of your total worldwide sales? Last one to vote. Yeah. So most of you are seeing India as one of the markets that you're selling to, but also a fairly big part of you actually sees India as one of the bigger markets to generate revenue in the coming years. Klaus, I'm going to hand over the mic to you. As I just mentioned, Klaus is the founder of Maier+Vidorno in India. He is in Delhi at the moment. He just told us that it's quite warm and stormy, so hopefully the internet connection will stay on. But Klaus, probably you can introduce yourself a lot better. So I hand over the mic to you, and for all the participants, please do ask your questions in the chat room. We will moderate this, and at the end we will try to answer the most important ones. Klaus?
Yeah, Ward, namaste, good morning here from New Delhi, or good morning to you, good afternoon here. And thank you very much also for the nice and kind introduction. Yes, you're right, we have actually a very stormy day. I think monsoon is arriving in Delhi. And typically that's the time when the infrastructure doesn't hold up as per expectation. Sometimes electricity and also internet connection doesn't work as we wanted. So let's hope that this will not happen while we're doing this event. So I think I will share now my screen with you, and I think so I have to click here on Klaus Maier, me. So show my screen. And I hope everybody can see it now.
Yeah, we see it.
Perfect, perfect. So you already mentioned everything. I've been living in India for a very long time, now since 20 years, but I've been doing business with India since 1995, so quite some time now. And it was 80–90% of the time both related to selling products in India, setting up sales teams, and building up sales infrastructures for European and American products here in the country. We as M&V, just to you summarized it already quite nicely, but here you also see a picture of our team when we had our 15th anniversary. And this year we're celebrating our 20th. Unfortunately, there won't be a big party. We had planned it, but due to COVID, obviously this is not happening. We are headquartered in New Delhi and have otherwise offices in Pune, Bangalore, and Chennai, plus a small accounting office in Mumbai, and hence cover pretty much the entire interesting business hubs of India with our own infrastructure. And we are doing this with 150 employees spread throughout the country. So just to show where we work and how we work, this is pretty much our scope of activity. So we are a traditional market entry company, and our customers are very, very often companies who have either no experience in India in selling, or if they have experience, then not with an own sales team, and basically working with distributors, dealers, maybe having some direct sales. So very often at the beginning of assignments which we have with customers, companies request information about the market, and based on those information, you make an entry plan. But then later on, and this is where we are really strong, is when it comes to implementing those plans, when it comes to setting up maybe own incorporations, own private limiteds, or some companies when they want to go into a joint venture or want to buy an indie company, to identify targets and help companies closing the deals. Later on, obviously, and this is where we work. I hope you can see the cursor in this sales and marketing, which means companies who want to sell something in India what they don't make in India. For this, we have a number of solutions I will show you later on, or for companies who want to set up a manufacturing unit in India, where we also support companies to get this done on the ground. But during this event, I would like to speak about companies who want to sell something in India what they don't make in India. Basically importing products into the country and then selling it to Indian customers. Otherwise, being a market entry company, we take care of recruitments, we take care of office-in-office solutions when somebody comes here and wants to start off with a simple desk, or also product registrations, company formations I already mentioned. Product registrations has become a very, very tedious job lately. Since April 1st, the laws in India have changed, and whatever you want to sell in India basically requires a registration. So this is something what will become very important to know for everybody who wants to sell products in India. This is just shows some logos basically, but it gives you pretty much an understanding of what type of clientele we work for. Our customers, there are a few of them are very big, they're international or multinational corporates, but the majority of our customers, they are the so-called family-owned businesses, medium-sized businesses. In Germany, one consultant has formed the term hidden champions, basically companies who who are in their product category, sell something, and they do that worldwide, and they are the specialists for this one product, and therefore them it's very important to be also present in India. The typical size of our clients is anywhere between, let's say, 50 million euros up to 500 million euros worldwide revenue, just for you to understand where we come from. Okay, but I saw when Ward introduced you to this webinar and you did the poll, that the group of spectators of the auditorium here is pretty diverse. There are some companies having a lot of experience in India, and some companies who have not done any business yet with India. So let me just summarize a little bit why India is interesting for actually every company to look into. And before I do that, what is very important is to understand how the market is structured in India, because in India you find different levels. You find that very well-developed market, which is the premium segment, pretty much reflected by international products which come into the country, and you have the low-end market, which is the bottom of the pyramid, which is a segment which is obviously wide in quantity, but I think not reachable for any international company when you do business in India. The interesting part is actually that good enough market, because that is a segment which is growing on a day-to-day basis, and it's simply categorized by products which are affordable, which give you the functions you need, but affordable for the purchase power here in India. But I think right now, when it comes to imported products, we only talk about the top segment. And this gives you an understanding about the quantities. You see, India imports per year roughly 360 billion euro of product. But that is not just manufactured product, that also contains raw materials, crude oil, urea for the agricultural industry, chemicals, etc., etc. When it comes to products, we talk roughly about a volume of 64 manufactured products, about a volume of 64 billion euros, and that is any manufactured product from a machine to a pen to a pencil, anything what is basically being manufactured. And here on this side, you see how many products are being manufactured in India. So we're talking about a quantity of roughly 500 billion euros, and the top segment represents roughly 12%. This is the so-called good enough market, which is actually what many companies achieve once they have been here for a while. They enter India through this import segment, gain experience, develop market share, and eventually the pressure from the Indian organization gets so strong that the MD or the country head saying, hey, how can we grow into this segment and also participate in the fastest growing actually product categories in India. But we are talking about the top segment. And the top segment has actually one problem. As you can see, I just put a few flags here. This is the segment where whoever looks at India faces a very, very tough competition from other countries. And this means that the pressure on the margins, especially in this top segment, is very, very high. Much higher than, for example, in this good enough market, what is more domestic segment. So here you have a very, very tough competition. But it is actually your entry ticket into the country. And why India? Yes.
Can I just ask you one quick question in between? Can you give an example on the previous slide of a company that you helped into India that started in this top segment and then slowly moved towards the good enough market?
Oh yeah, we have quite a few. We have quite a few, and for example, the latest candidate is a manufacturer of PVC profiles for windows. They started importing those PVC profiles from Germany into India. The company is not a secret, it's by the name of Kömmerling, and they only cater to very high-end buildings, and then they set up their own extruding facility here, and now have a very, very nice business with good margins, and they are now the #1 player for PVC profiles in India. Sure. Another company is a manufacturer of plows. So they started importing plows into India, and then had problems that the size of the plows is actually it was too strong for the Indian tractors. So started developing a local product here, and India is the biggest tractor market in the world, and now they're manufacturing plows for the tractors which are being made in India. Also now the #1 position in India.
Okay, thanks.
So this year is the income distribution in 2010, and I think that is what everybody looks at when you look at India. You see, here you have roughly about 20 million households when it comes to a purchase power of more than 12,000 euros, which you would say is very, very small, but that is the reality you face here. That is the what you find here. You find 800 million, 900 million, 1 billion people with a purchase power of less than 4,000 euros per year, and you have maybe what 20, 30, 40 million. That was in 2010 with more than 12,500. But look what has happened over the last 10 years. Yeah. That number in 2010 was roughly 20 million people. Now we're talking about 10 times that amount, almost 200 million people. So that's how the purchase power has grown in India, and obviously also that money what has been earned in India is also being spent in India, and that's what makes India so interesting, and that development will continue. So this bottom at the pyramid people, or the below the poverty line, this segment is shrinking more and more and more, and it's really moving forward. And I think that's what makes India so interesting for everybody who wants to invest in the country. So, but India, who has done business here, who is doing business here, knows that it's not all very simple. And I put together a few challenges which every company, and I think that's the interesting part here, there's no difference for an Indian company or foreign company. Every company who is doing business in India is facing those challenges. And I would like to start with the challenges which have to do with the country and the mentality of the people. So first of all, you have to understand that India is a continent. India is not like a country in Europe. India is Europe, so to speak, which means from a size point of view, in the north you have, let's say, when you put it down to Europe, you have maybe Norway or Lapland or Finland. In the south, you end up almost in Morocco, Tunisia. In the east, you would end up in Ukraine or in eastern part of Poland, and on the west, you would end up in Great Britain. So it's a continent, and it's also as diverse as Europe. A northern Indian and a southern India, they only have, for example, only one language in common, and that is not Hindi, that is English. And it also has a lot to do with this different food, different mentality. It's like in Europe. And to be quite frank, also in Europe, you wouldn't take a salesperson from Sicily and make him selling your products in Sweden. The same thing in India. If you want to sell in the north, you need to do that with northern people. If you want to sell in the south, you need to do that with southern people. So that is one thing. The second thing is, and I already showed you, when it comes to imported products, it's a growing market. It's growing day by day, but at the end of the day, it's still a relatively small market. And that is what the situation you find today. And that small market is divided not on the size of a country like Germany, it's divided on a continent of Europe. And this continent of Europe, and then you have within this continent, you have pockets, which is northern India, which is western India, which is southern India, where 80% of the business is happening. But those pockets are culturally very, very diverse and very different from each other. And then whoever has been here in India, and quite a few of you have been here, understands that it's very, very difficult to satisfy an Indian customer. Indian customers are very demanding, and they're also very price sensitive. That's also a thing where you have to find a solution how to deal with. But I don't want to talk about this price negotiation and demanding customers. I would rather focus a little bit on how to cover the sheer size of the continent of India. You see, the only way, unless you sell high technical machines where you have maybe only 10, 20, 30 customers in the market, otherwise, every product which goes into distribution, every product which has a fairly high number of customers in the country, you require dealers. You require dealers who cover the continent for you. And otherwise, it will be impossible to get that local knowledge, what you need in order to sell your products on the ground. And this is actually one thing what everybody has to keep in mind. And I'll show you what I mean. I give you one example from a power tool, one of my customers, who's a power tool manufacturer, just to show you their dealer network. Yeah, these are all dealers in the country. And that is something what is very, very typical. I mean, a number of 100, 200, 300 dealers, of course, it depends from product to product, but it's, to be quite frank, it's not a number which is unheard of. And here I show you also how long it takes. I show you now how long it took to develop this northeast part of the country. Yeah, here you see the dealers in this area around Delhi. Then you have this area around Uttar Pradesh, which is a huge state in India. 200 million people live in that state, and it's almost the size of, or half the size of Europe in population. And then you have this area around Kolkata, East India. And it took 5 years, 5 years to build up those 35 dealers from a level coming here. We talk about 120,000 euro revenue in the first year to roughly 1 million euros after 5 years. So you can imagine how many customers you need to visit, how many companies you need to see in order to build it up. Obviously, power tools is a product which is really sold over the counter. So the dealer network may be more intense than for others. But for everybody, it's very, very important to know you need external help to develop your sales. Coming now to the question, Yeah, when you in the Netherlands have to make that choice to develop India, is it actually possible to have an agent or distributor, yeah, who sets up a system with those multiple sub dealers in the country, or is it possible with own sales staff, with people who basically know your products, with people who bring in your mentality, who bring in your company culture into the country? And to be quite frank, 80% of our customers, maybe even more, yeah, have started with an agent. They came to a certain level, and then the business didn't grow any longer. And then they started saying, "Hey, what can we do?" And went actually over to hiring own salespeople and developing the market. So very, very clearly, if you want to develop India, yeah, you may start with an agent or distributor, but to be quite frank, the only sustainable and successful way to develop the Indian market is basically with your own salespeople who, and that comes on top. Products from Europe are typically not as cheap as products from China, who know how to sell through value and not simply through price. So that is a typical sales structure, how the country is being divided into regions. You have the southern region, you have the western region, you have the eastern region, and you have the northern region. And for each, and here, this is also very happen, the business in the east is typically not as big as in the other three regions. Very often, the northern region and the eastern region are being clubbed to one common sales area. And then you have a national sales manager who sits on top of those regional sales managers who basically take care of these regions and develop their customer base. And I'll show you later on also how this is being done. So that is very often how companies start. They hire a national sales manager, and then the national sales manager builds up the structure underneath him in terms of regional sales managers and so on. What I want to discuss with you is one alternative, which is the so-called BDM concept. In India, you have a very strong hierarchy also when it comes to sales. The business development concept is it's a bit outside the hierarchy, which means here you can hire good people who don't fall into that category, and that has been applied very often by companies who sell machines where you have maybe 50 customers, 40 potential customers in the country, and these machines need to be the only way how to sell these machines is through high level technical explanations. But when it comes to distribution, and this is what I want to focus on, it's actually this RSM level. So instead of hiring a national sales manager, you hire maybe 2 or 3 regional sales managers, and I'll tell you why this works. If you look at the salary what a national sales manager earns, that's typically, obviously also here a wide range, but typically in the range of around 50,000 euro per year. And now the interesting part is every hierarchy level you go down and cut the salary cost by more or less 50%, which means for the cost of one national sales manager, you get already 2 regional sales manager. And then you have to also imagine how much does a national sales manager have to travel in the country. And the travel cost, which you save because somebody is only in the west or in the south, basically almost finances the 3rd regional sales manager. And that is how the most successful companies who have worked with us in the past have all started. Instead of hiring a national sales manager, they started with 2 or 3 regional sales managers. And if you look at a different topic, but if you look at the Indian society, 70% of the population is younger than 80% is younger than 35 years, which means if you are a regional sales manager or national sales manager, maybe only the difference that this guy joined the company half a year before. So you have very, very good and qualified people on this level who are very keen and eager, and they would love to work and to develop the business for a European company. And typically, just to finish this chapter, A regional sales manager divides his area into 3, 4, 5 different areas, and they are being covered by area sales managers. And these area sales managers are being supported by sales executives. And sales executives are very often people who just travel with a bicycle or by bus or whatever to the customer. They would not be able to speak to you. They would not be able to speak English. These area sales managers, it's already dicey. They speak a little English, but not very much. So you need to somewhere find the people you start working with in this level, because they're good people, they are affordable people, and they actually understand also how a European company thinks and what a European company expects. So very interesting. Yeah, maybe don't hire the very expensive guy and call him country head. Hire instead 2 or 3 young managers at cost of 15,000–20,000 euros per year, and they will develop an area, and they're also from that area. They know what you're talking about. So that is one thing I wanted to discuss with you, and the other thing I wanted to discuss with you is actually the bureaucracy which you find in India. Everybody who has been in India knows that it's a very, very bureaucratic and complex market. And one topic is that bureaucracy in India is not there to help you. Bureaucracy in India, or bureaucrats in India, are there to find mistakes, and once you have a mistake, to actually cash in. Plus, and this is also one topic which is very important to understand. India is a very transparent market. It has to do with the size of companies. Obviously, we have seen that there are millions of people who have a very low income. And that is also then reflected by the type of companies you find in India. A lot of companies are very, very small, but on the internet, everybody looks the same, everybody promises you everything, everybody says, no problem, I can help you. But at the end of the day, somebody who really delivers what is being promised, then it takes a while to find that out. And now we have hired those salespeople, and at the end of the day, what happens? Yeah, and this I want to show you here. You have this, whatever you call it, business developer, you call it regional sales manager. You see, they are here, they have been hired to focus on getting customers. But because so many different things end up on their desk, that their attention is being diverted. I call it here CFO work, I call it COO work, but you also can call it buying a printer, buying a computer, booking a travel ticket, etc., etc. It's keeping those people away from selling, from building up market. And this is what we do together with IndiaConnected. We put those people on our payroll. We call this incubation. We take care of everything, yeah, which has to be taken care of, so that these people can focus 100% on selling products, on finding customers, on giving technical explanations to customers, on developing new dealers, new distributors, basically selling. Obviously, you say, fine, but I don't want to put my people on the payroll of somebody else. It's maybe easy for a start, but at the end of the day, I find it very important to take care of my own branding. But even then, this can be done. And that is also a big chunk of our business. The companies, or the country head, or the regional sales managers, depending on who is the reporting person on top, is the one taking care of sales, and all those administrative functions which a company has to do is being outsourced to India. And we do this typically for 120 to 150 companies any given point in time. For example, just for information, last year in 2019, we invoiced almost 100 million euros on behalf of our customers here in the country, and we processed 30,000, 32,000 sales invoices per year. So which means this back office here is a big machine. The big machine, when you with your initial sales come, it can be onboarded very easily and very simple, and so that you really can focus on selling your product in the market and don't need to fight on those things where you're not the expert. So to summarize, and then I'm already at the end, I think it's knowing your market. Everybody knows it's very important. It's a key success factor. But why is it very important? It's not that you come to India and say, I have 1 billion people, it's 1 billion customers. It's not. You have to understand what those big numbers mean for your business. Is it really 100 million customers, or is it only 10 million customers or 1 million customers? It's a very, very important question, because the numbers are very often much smaller than what you would expect. Then selling, it's also very, very time intensive, and you need to do a lot of technical selling. Indian customers are very price sensitive, and they want to know everything, but it's able to convince them. But you have to do that. It's not you go one time to a customer and he buys immediately. You have to go 10 times. You have to go 15 times. So you have to basically need a structure which can support that. And then focus on your business. Don't waste your time and money on bureaucracy and other small little tiny problems. And I think if you do that, then you will be successful. Yeah, that is what I came to. Obviously, Martin, who is in the back, and Ward, they represent us in the Netherlands, and we would be happy and gladly to provide you with support. And yeah, in case you have questions now, I would be also very happy to answer those. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Klaus, for this very interesting presentations. I have a few questions myself. What kind of companies are not successful in India? If you talk about European companies entering India, which companies do you see are failing?
Okay, first let me go back to this slide here. Yeah, and you still see that?
Yeah.
Okay, I would say here, companies who don't have a realistic target. It sounds always very stupid, but at the end of the day, if I don't know my target, or if I don't have a target, I cannot reach it. Yeah. If I have a very clear understanding of what I want to achieve, I can plan how to get there. A lot of companies come to India and say, I want to make 1 million euro revenue. They don't know what it means. How many customers do I have to visit to convince to become customers to achieve that 1 million euro? What sales team do I need in the back in order to convince those companies to become customers? So I would say every company can be a successful company in the market, but you need to have realistic targets. If you don't have realistic targets, you will fail.
Yeah, so you need the insight in the market and how it works, and then decide if your business case will work for India.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes.
Another thing that you mentioned about the national sales manager and the regional sales manager. So what I understood is you say let's say you hire a national sales manager or a regional sales manager. That person, to find the right person, is key. And if you find that person will find all the other people. Is that correctly?
Yes, obviously, it's India is a hierarchy, and everybody wants to hire the people that work for them, and I think it's very clear. So you cannot. It always fails when somebody else hires somebody who shall report to somebody else, and this person who is then the reporting manager is not happy with that decision. This person finds always a way how to get rid of the one who has been hired. Yeah. If you're a European shareholder, European businessman, you hire the top level you start with, and the rest and then develops on itself here. Obviously together. I mean, it's not that then everything happens here in India only, and you don't know what's going on. No. But at the end of the day, yes.
And if this person, like the first person or the first few people, are so important, how do you find these people, and how do you know if they are good? How do you do it?
As I said, it's obviously you need your own recruitment team. You need to have a good database. You need to have tools how to talk to those people. But it's not so difficult to find them. Yeah, it's really not so difficult. I mean, we do that per year. I don't know what 100, 150 positions on that level. And typically, what happens is that if somebody comes from Europe and says, "Hey, I want to now come to the final interviews," typically they leave the interviews and say, "Now I have 4 people. I don't know whom to hire because they're all good." Yeah, and I'm not exaggerating here, because what happens? You see, as I said, you hire somebody from a good Indian company, and or you look in that level of a good Indian company, and as I said, you are maybe 30 years old. You have 10 years of experience. Your boss, he is maybe 34 years old. Yeah, because that is due to that due to the age structure in the Indian market. So what chances of growth do you have? You cannot grow unless you leave a company and you look for a good other company. And for every every Indian person would love to work for an Indian company. And that level, what we have hired in the past, over the past 20 years, hardly anybody, unless you ask to leave, hardly anybody is leaving. Those people typically stay with the company. I mean, we always talk about people leave very fast, very high attrition in India, but this then later on comes when you have a big team, when you have 10, 20 people, you have like these sales engineers on the lower level, they come and go. They come, they stay 2 years with you, and then they go.
One of the common things that we hear, and also a recent story, that most of the times when, for instance, a Dutch company enters India and they have a regional sales manager or a national sales manager, this is some person that they met at a business fair or as a relation of a friend or something else. And because they find the market difficult, they have trust in this person, and they start with this person, then that often leads to a very high salary without first really sit down and think, what do I need and which people are available in the market in general. Do you see that as well with the German clients you are servicing, that they start off with somebody that they know, or do you advise them to always look more broad?
I mean, first of all, it doesn't mean that the person you know has to be the wrong person. Yeah, it can be very well the right person, but it's always been advised to check if whatever you have heard is really the truth. Yeah, so do a background check and also maybe take a comparison and see what else is available in the market. And I'm very sure if you find that the person you're working with for a while is a good person, it's nothing wrong with hiring this person. Also, when it comes to salary, obviously nobody wants to overpay. But at the end of the day, if you pay, I don't know what, 20,000 or 22,000 euros, it's 10% in difference. But for your business, it doesn't make a difference. Yeah. But what is more important to consider here is actually you need to understand that. And it doesn't matter if you want to hire people, or if you want to enter into a joint venture, or if you enter into a business relationship with an agent or distributor. One thing you need to understand, and now we're touching the intercultural topic, but it's very important to understand. I don't know why that is, but Indians, yeah, and no offense here, Indians know how to make you feel comfortable. They have that ability, the skill, the whatever to make you feel like you're the most important person in the world. And for most people, this is something what makes you feel good. Yeah, and then very often, you know, it leads to situations where these relationships are not too successful. So be very careful. Check and also know with whom you're working, and that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, thanks. We have 15 more minutes, so I'm now switching to the questions of the participants. We had somebody asking the question, when we sell equipment or services, there are some differences on the tax situation. How can we manage this, and how can we avoid this? So changing
okay, now taxes. I would need to know what difference in tax situation. You see, first of all, now we have GST. Earlier there was different taxes for selling, for service, and for manufacturing. Now it's one GST, and the GST is basically a countrywide structure. So that problem should be actually not there. You have a rather different topic with GST is that the place where you sell, where your warehouse is, or where your location is from which you sell, to the place where you sell, you have to split the GST between those things, and in filing that's very complex. So very difficult for me to answer that question right now like this. I would need to know more details.
And in general, so you say GST is there now. I mean, the Indian tax system is also developing and changing all the time. I can imagine that this is also
India has implemented a uniform VAT system. It's called GST in India. It covers imports. It covers local invoicing for services. It covers local invoicing for product, and a lot of things can be offset against each other. Not everything, it's a bit maybe. I mean, tax is always complex. Maybe India has a tendency to make things even more complex than they need to be. But it's actually it's a favorable system for companies who export to India or import into India. Earlier, those companies were disadvantaged, and with the new GST regime, this disadvantage has gone.
Okay, we have many more questions, so I'm going to the next one. This is also an interesting one. What is your vision on international branding and local marketing?
Okay, international branding is very important in India because people with international branding, people directly understand, okay, quality, but they also directly understand more expensive. And that's when it comes to local marketing, where your local marketing has to bridge that gap between perception and demand. People want quality, people want international, but people may not be able to afford quality and international. And the question is, this you have to solve with your marketing, how to bridge that gap, either to raise that expectation on the customer side to be willing. I mean, Apple did it very well, yeah. Everybody, I mean, the smartphones here are being sold at international price levels, and they are selling as well as any other product. Either raise the expectation and the willingness to pay for a product, or come up with a solution still how to benefit from your international branding, but to lower your product. And then we talk about this good enough market segment and reach a different client here with a different purchase power.
Can you just quickly explain? I mean, if you don't have an establishment in India, so you don't have your private limited or your Dutch BV in India, and you still want to do local marketing, so you want to enter the marketing, have your local branding over there. It's not allowed now by Indian law. Is there any solution for this?
What you can do is, obviously you can do marketing. What you cannot do is, you can, if you don't have your own company or your own setup, is to sell in India to that consumer segment. B2C is for a foreign company not allowed. So you need to have a local invoicing unit in between. I would find it very difficult to run my marketing from the Netherlands in India. I think you need to find at least a local solution how to get this here on the ground. I mean, just to do it by remote, I find very difficult, if that was the question.
Yeah. Another question, how to protect your IP?
Okay. Again, how to protect your IP is a big...
IP, intellectual property.
IP, that's possible. That's possible. I mean, India is, for example, we had that very, very often that you go on an exhibition and you see copies of your products, and that within a day or within hours, actually, you get, okay, what's the word for Verfügung from the court, so that companies have to take away their products. So it's possible to protect your patents, to protect your technology.
Yeah. And if there's any dispute,
okay, that is something different. To have right and to get right is always two different topics. You see, that's why we work typically with lawyers who are very good on the arbitration side. I mean, going to court is really not the solution here in India. I mean, first of all, have very tight contracts, very good contracts. Make sure that you anticipate what all can go wrong, and then have a very strong arbitration clause in your contracts.
Yeah. Okay. Another question that we received is how to find the right agents in India, and then I add another question to it: how to set up a dealership contract, of an official contract or a handshake agreement. So how to find that agent?
Definitely not handshake agreement. Just to answer that beforehand, very, very long contract, and contracts here in India. I mean, no contract is shorter than 20 pages. Yeah, but that has to do with common law, and common law, whatever is not outspoken is open. Yes, which means you have to cover each and every scenario. That's why Indian lawyers are so good in thinking around the corner what all could go wrong. Yeah, that's why you have those long contracts. Please do not work with a handshake. Yeah, handshake definitely will go wrong. How to find the right dealer, find distributor? Obviously, you do a search. Yeah, you define what you want. You define what you want to achieve. You define what is yeah, the right profile of distributor. I wouldn't call it dealer or agent. I would call it distributor. That's the more common term here in India. And then you start searching. I mean, you start looking who is in the market. You start comparing. You check. Then you do a good background check of those companies who you have identified. Background check, which means you talk to their customers, how happy their customers are. Do they feel comfortable to work with this company? Do they get a good after-sales service, for example? Check with other principals, international principals who work with that company, and say, what is the experience? And I think if you do your homework, then yeah, that should not too much should go wrong, and have a watertight contract.
Yeah. Okay. Two other questions. How to deal with corruption? That's one, and the other one, how to negotiate. Any advice on negotiating? And we all hear stories of Indian people being very advanced in negotiating. Is that also your experience?
Yes, obviously, negotiation is part of the business here. It's part of the culture, and you just need to play along. But it doesn't mean that you need to give in. I mean, for example, first thing is what happens here. A word is not a word. Yeah, not that people are lying, but the situation is changing on a day-to-day basis. Circumstances are changing. The environment is changing. You need to be flexible. What you have said today may be completely obsolete tomorrow, and that obviously is also part of that negotiation culture. Plus, this you have to always keep in mind. Even if you talk to maybe entrepreneurs who run factories, who have manufacturing companies, the Indian culture or Indian business culture is a trading culture. You talk basically to traders, you talk to buyers and sellers, yeah. And the secret of buyers and sellers is you buy low and sell high, and so you have to negotiate. And what you need in India for negotiation is time. Yeah, don't let somebody put you under time pressure. Yeah, because there's always time in India. Yeah, whatever deadline somebody gives you here locally, it's always a deadline to put more pressure on you to quickly say something. That is number one. And number two, yeah, please play along. I mean,
yeah.
And one thing what happens very often, don't fall into that trap. When you get an inquiry of India and it says 100 pieces, yeah, don't expect that the order will be for 100 pieces. The order may be only for one piece later on, yeah. Or people always ask for much more in the beginning than they actually will take at the end.
Yeah, that's a good tip. And bribing, corruption?
Difficult topic. Everybody knows that India is obviously India is a country where these things happen. Yeah, I think if I say it doesn't happen in India, I would lie. But the question is, where do you do business? Do you do business with government, with official bureaucracy, or do you do business with on the private level? On a private level, it's really it's there. You need to have your control mechanisms in place, but nothing what you have to fear. And otherwise, you have the so-called corruption, which is the bureaucratic corruption. As I said, bureaucrats in India are not there to help you. They are there to find mistakes which you make in your, let's say, documentation, for example. And once you have made a mistake, they come and they will point out that mistake and say, look, and then you have to pay for it. Yeah, that's what it is. So, as I said,
and that is
there are ways how to deal with that. Sorry.
Yeah, exactly. So there are ways to deal with it. So it's naive to think that you can stay completely outside of this world of bribing.
Absolutely.
And yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
One specific question: how to pay commission to agents from a tax perspective?
Okay, I think it's a very normal transaction. The agent is selling and you pay a commission. The agent raises the commission towards the Netherlands, to Holland, yeah. and saying, okay, I've sold so and so much, and you please send me now 1,000 euros for that service. Then you have to pay the bill.
Yeah.
So I don't. I think it's a very normal transaction. So again, I would like to understand a little better what is really meant by this question.
Yeah. Okay. I'm seeing if there are any more questions coming in. Let's see. I think one more question. Do you have any advice for companies that just started a sales team in India?
We just started the sales. Yes, absolutely. Invest a lot of time in your sales team. Don't assume that anything will just work like that. Nothing will just work like this. Yeah, you have to really tell everybody what you expect and how people should actually also achieve that. You have to. I very clearly see all the time that somebody who spends a lot of time initially makes a company successful. Somebody who sits remotely and says, okay, this will go and work and it's all fine, it's not going to happen. Yeah.
What does this, let's say you have an international business development manager or a CEO or whoever sets up the team in India, how does his or her schedule look like in terms of traveling to India or living in India or Skyping with India? Do you have an idea about this?
Not living in India. Obviously, nobody is living in India. People travel to India. First of all, you have to set very clear objectives, achievable objectives. Yeah, and it's not saying I have a sales team now 1 million euro. Yeah, again, what does 1 million euro mean? What is standing behind that figure? What are the activities which have been done in order to get there? Break the big targets down into small objectives and make sure that you have a system in place which allows you to monitor if people really achieve those milestones and work on those milestones. You need a constant monitoring system which gives you the information if things which you want to happen are really happen or not. So that whenever it's not happening, you can jump in and
so almost on a daily basis.
But daily basis, I wouldn't say. I mean, who can do that on a daily basis? But on a regular basis, yeah. Definitely not just once a year or twice a year or thrice a year. You need to have regular feedback mechanisms, and you need also to make sure that the information you need from India, you get from India.
Yeah, because one complaint that we normally hear is a Dutch manager travels to India and a lot happens in the 2 weeks he or she is there, everything goes smoothly, then he or she goes back to Holland and comes back, I don't know, 5-6 months later, and in between everything that they build up in those 2-3 weeks is vanished.
Which is very normal, and to be quite frank, the same thing happens to me in Germany. Yeah, when I go there thrice or 4 times a year and we decide on targets, yeah. What everybody says, yes, sir, yeah, not sir. Okay, this we don't have in Germany, but nothing happens. I think it's just human. It's just simply human.
Yeah. Okay. It's 10:30. I think we've answered all questions. Thank you, Klaus, for the interesting insights. I can imagine that for most participants, you touched on some topics, but it raises many more questions, and maybe also makes you rethink your India strategy. As Klaus already mentioned, me and Maarten are available. You can reach out to us, and then we can look specifically at your case. And of course, we would love to make a proposal for you to see how we can help you focus on your business in India and let all the other things be dealt by people who are trained for this. Thanks for participating. Klaus, thanks for speaking to the Dutch audience. As I mentioned, we will send a recording of this presentation to the participants, and hopefully we will speak soon.
Okay, thank you, Ward. What a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, bye everybody. Enjoy your week.